All right.
Hello, everybody. Robbie Jeanette here with Keith England. I met Keith. I got to say, you're what they call a mensch. After my house burned down, certain people reached out to me, and Keith was a guy that I had known from the Ultimate Jam Night and reached out and said, "Hey, I got some clothes if you need some clothes." I met him in Hollywood, and he was nice enough to gift me a bunch of cool stuff, including an Eat a Peach t-shirt, which we'll get
Yeah,
to the
man.
Allman Brothers. So, my first genuine hang with you was humanity, empathy, and I really got a feel for the warm and generous person you are off stage.
Uh,
So,
well, man,
um,
I was happy to help. I wasn't happy about the circumstances, but I was certainly more than happy to help, and it was an honor to, give you at least a little something.
yeah, man. It meant a lot to me. Still means a lot to me. So, but
But
I've known you singing on stage as this guy who had sung with the Allman Brothers, Montrose, and also was just at every time you got up, every different song, whether it was Alice Cooper, whatever it was, you were giving your 110% and really killing. And I was really always impressed with what you brought in terms of energy and your voice. So.
thank you,
I,
thank you.
I wanted to talk to you about music and how you got to be musical. So let me go all the way back to your
Wow.
childhood. What would be a song that you, like your parents would have remembered you singing, like a first song that kind of caught you that you were
Well,
singing?
it's I age myself whether I want to or not. So, I would say probably I would trace it back to Ricky Nelson. Hello, Mary Lou was the first single that I
Yeah.
bought, first 45 I ever bought. I was way before the Beatles. I was parked in front of the TV at the end of Ozzie and Harriet when Ricky would always do a song, and
Yep.
I would have my little Roy Rogers guitar and pantomime and lip sync. And Hello, Mary Lou goes back as far as it goes for me. I mean, hearing my dad's Frank Sinatra records and stuff like that, musically. Probably my earliest musical memory would have been Dave Brubeck's Take Five,
Nice.
which was which was new at that point. So my dad had the record. My dad was a musician as well and a jazz
What
music
did he play?
aficionado. So
What did your dad
I
play?
grew up listening to that. But my first actual musical thing was Ricky Nelson, "Hello, Mary Lou." I just recently found out that was actually the B side of that single. The actual A side was Traveling Man, which was great too.
Yeah.
But Hello, Mary Lou. And I found out the other day too, I did a deep dive in that song and that Gene Pitney wrote it.
Okay.
Yeah,
There you
so I
go.
mean, it had James Burton on it. It was like, pretty good taste for a little kid.
Yeah, for sure.
That's as far back as it would go as far as buying records, listening to music and stuff like that. Yeah.
How about singing? What's the first song that you sang where you felt like really like it fit your voice?
Well, I couldn't really tell. I did a lot of lip syncing and singing into the hairbrush and stuff like that, but I wasn't
Yes.
actually singing. The first time anybody took notice of my singing, I was riding around in a car with a bunch of older kids. I was probably 12, 13. They were obviously old enough to drive.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in the back seat, and the song Groovin' by the Rascals came on.
Yeah.
And when I was 12, 13, I looked like Ernie from My Three Sons. I had the glasses, the little short haircut. I did not look at all mature but I still had this voice. And I'm in the backseat of the car and I went, grooving on a Sunday afternoon. And these kids all looked around and they said, was that you? And I'm like, yeah, was that okay? And they're like, yeah, that was really okay. So that was the first time I actually sang and someone noticed and said, hey, you sound good.
That's cool.
Um, First time I sang with a band would have been 15, 16. And I was the guy at the party that was doing Mick Jagger, Rod Stewart, lip syncing, jumping around like crazy.
Cool.
And there was again some older kids that had a band, literal garage band. And one of the guys said, "Man, if you can sing at all, you'd be really good at this." And I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "Come." So I literally went to the garage.
Yep.
These guys were playing. It sounded great. They plugged a microphone into the bass amp while the bass was playing also. And I sang Jumpin' Jack Flash.
Nice.
And that was it. That
That
was
was
it. It
it.
was
You
all
were
over.
hooked.
I mean, it was all over for me when I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, but to actually physically do it myself, that was it.
So describe the watching the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. Had you'd been aware of the music, but you hadn't seen them, right?
I had a friend. I was in Fort Lauderdale, and I had a friend whose grandmother was a New Yorker, and she had brought the "I Want to Hold Your Hand" saw her standing there single to him a couple months, I think for Christmas. So that was February of 64. I
Yeah,
think it was Christmas of 63 that the first time I heard it. And we were both, Ricky Nelson fanatics.
right.
And all of a sudden it was like, wait a minute, what the fuck is this? And and of course the picture on the cover, the one
All
where
of
they
it.
got the collarless coats and Paul McCartney smoking. So my friend wanted to be Paul. Of course, we had to play Beatles immediately.
Right.
I want to be Paul because he thought it was cool that he was smoking. I'm like, cool, I'll be John. That's fine.
Yeah.
And but yeah, that was it. And then a couple months later, that February, it was like they're going to be on Ed Sullivan, and we're like glued to the TV, and that was it. It was
That was
like
an event,
nothing.
right?
I'm not doing anything else. And
And people really don't understand back in the day. I mean, you had to wait to see something. It's not everything now is on demand, but
yeah,
you know,
exactly. Yeah, you
and
couldn't
even back
stream it.
in the days of radio, Pete, you'd sit with a cassette to tape, wait for a song to appear so you could tape it off the radio, you know?
Exactly.
Did,
Exactly.
did you used to do
Yeah,
that?
I did. I
What
did.
would
I used to
what,
tape stuff off the
what would be
radio
what
because
would
it
be a
was,
what would
yes.
be a song you would tape off the radio that
Oh
you'd
God, it would have
wait
been
for, like
Honky
waited
Tonk
for it?
Women, Honky Tonk Women, Led Zeppelin. I mean, I had the records, but it was something about getting it off the radio too. It was just like it felt kind of subversive and like you were, hey, I've got this. This is mine. And of course, it sounded like shit. A little cassette on the radio itself, without the recording, it sounded like crap.
Right.
So then making a second generation on an old cassette machine or something
Is it
sounded
is
awful, but it was
it,
still,
it's
it
that
was,
but that communal idea that we're all listening to the same song at the same time. Nowadays, with everybody in their ear pods, everybody's having this unique individualized experience, but that communal experience, which you could still turn on the radio and feel that,
yeah, yeah,
that was something. It really meant like you were connected to people. So if you're listening to that station and everybody heard that new Led Zeppelin song or whatever at the time, those
yeah.
are the cool kids. If you're listening to that station, you wouldn't have had that at all.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, even into like MTV,
Yeah.
you'd call your friend, are you watching this? You know?
Yeah. And when MTV came in, and I don't want to get too far ahead. I want to backtrack a little bit, but when MTV came in, certain bands, they broke because of MTV. They broke because of the image. And before that, in the 70s, yes, bands had image. Yeah, you'd see pictures and whatnot, but it wasn't so much about the video and the video image. So,
Exactly.
um, what band would you say when MTV came in that you saw and based on image alone, you were like, wow, this is rad?
The Police for sure. The
Yeah,
Police, Sting's cheekbones were just like, really? And the music was cool. It was different.
very.
So I mean, I wasn't huge MTV. I was still records and I was out performing and stuff, but
Yeah.
I remember very well when it first came on and watching it, and it was like, really? You're going to have this 24 hours a day? And they had a good run.
So did
Had
you
a
used
good
to
run.
watch Don Kirshner or Night Flight?
Oh, sure, sure. Don
Those,
Kirshner and what was it? Friday. There was one on Friday night. Don Kirshner's rock concert.
yeah.
Um,
So
there was another one. Too.
did you see certain bands and because that was mostly live performances, right?
Yeah, yeah. And they actually played.
Yeah. So
They weren't.
what would be some of the bands that you were exposed to via watching, like seeing them on TV after the Beatles? Obviously, when Don
Oh,
Kirshner came on, stuff like that, there were certain you tune in late night, see some performances.
I remember Johnny Winter. I remember a Billy Preston
Oh,
on Rock Con on In Concert is what it was
yeah,
called. Billy Preston, and he had Jeff Beck sitting in,
yeah.
and it was just like what, because Billy Preston by that point had grown his hair, his afro out, and he
Right.
was just Billy Preston was just like so cool.
So
I
cool.
remember that. Allman Brothers, I saw them,
Yeah.
a couple of times on those shows. Of course, little did I know,
Right. That you're,
within 5 or 6 years, so
yeah. How
a
funny
lot
that
of those, a
happens.
lot of those shows. Foghat, remember Foghat was great. I saw them on some show. Of course, Bowie,
Yep.
but
So, did you start going to concerts when you were young? Did your parents take you to any music, or was it basically once you were a teenager and you started to go to shows?
I went to one concert. My mom took me in 1965. My mom and my best friend's mom took us in Fort Lauderdale, the old baseball stadium, to see the Dave Clark Five.
Oh, cool.
And it was sort of consolation prize because we didn't get to go see the Beatles a few months before in Miami. Miami was too far to go.
Yeah.
But it was like, well, and by this point, we liked the Dave Clark Five. Okay, that's cool,
Yeah.
close enough. It wasn't wasn't the Beatles, but
Right.
it was amazing.
That's awesome. And so
And the
when
girls were screaming, and you know, by that point we knew the Dave Clark Five material really well too. So
right on.
it was
What's
great.
so when you started going to shows on your own, like as a teenager, what were the first shows that you saw? And did you know the music ahead of time, or you were taken by somebody that just said, "Hey, trust me, this is going to be great"?
The first show I went to, the first concert I went to with my older cousin who could drive, I was 15, and it was the Beach Boys in Atlanta.
Cool.
But it was the Beach Boys during their like Surfs Up phase. So they were
Nice.
kind of it was more hippies and you know pretty cool lyrics. Van Dyke Parks was writing all their lyrics at that
Right.
point. Um, and we didn't know that Mike Love was a fascist. So
There's that.
it was amazing, but it was the Beach Boys. This was in Atlanta.
Right.
Beach Boys were the headliners. Mother's Finest was the middle act. Their record had just come out. And of course, they were local Atlanta group, so we were all crazy about them. And the opening act was this young guy named Bruce Springsteen.
Oh, how cool.
And his second record, Wild the Innocent and the E Street Shuffle, had just come out. Nobody had any idea who he was. I mean, there may have been people there that knew him, but
Right.
none of us knew. And we're just like, who's this guy? And he was in his still Maynard G. Krebs phase. He was skinny and he had the goatee.
Yep.
I'll never forget, he was wearing this black leotard shirt. And this is so not Springsteen.
Right.
Black leotard, skinny black leotard shirt with Elvis in rhinestones
Wow.
across the chest.
That's neat.
And none of us knew who he was. 45 minutes later, none of us would ever forget him. It was
That's cool.
unbelievable. It was the original E Street Band with
Yeah.
David Sanchez on keyboards,
Yep.
both
Roy
keyboards.
Matan.
David Sanchez was one of them, and just phenomenal. And it was that was a big point in my life as well because I was like, yeah, you know, and
And
he had everyone, every single person by the balls or by the you know what for 45 minutes, and then he left, and everybody was just all our jaws were on the floor. So that was my very first concert on my own. The first act I saw was Bruce Springsteen.
that's so cool. And it probably gives you the idea at that time, like, if you're the opener, you got something to prove. And if you go out
Well,
and you deliver, I grew up in Florida as well. I had a lot of older friends that had gone to see Black Sabbath at the High Life Fronton, and this
wow.
new band called Van Halen that nobody had heard of opened. And by the end of the Van Halen set, everybody was like, Black
Yeah,
Sabbath, who,
never forget him after that.
Right. What's another
And chewy.
opening act that you might have seen that just blew doors that you didn't expect was going to hit you like that?
Well, that was one. Jay Giles. I forget who they opened for, but Jay Giles, and I was familiar with them, but I had no idea what their live
Oh man.
performances were like.
Yeah.
And Peter Wolf, man, Peter Wolf, to this day, I haven't figured out how he did it, but he did this move where he would run across the stage and he'd like pole vault with his mic stand.
Wow.
I've tried it a couple times, ended up on my ass. I don't know how he did it. Someone told me one reason he was able to do it is because he's really tiny.
Yeah.
And I was pretty tiny then too, 20 years and 20 pounds ago, but I could never figure out. And I'd look and it'd be a round metal stand, mic
Yeah.
stand. He would plant that thing and then pole vault another 10, 20 feet across the stage
Amazing.
in time.
Yeah.
And he'd come back in singing. And he was Peter Wolf's one of the greatest
Of all time.
performers I've ever seen.
And I
But
think, if
Jay
you came
Giles,
if you came up in the MTV era, you knew them from the centerfold and freeze frame stuff, but
oh,
all that
this was
70s,
like Full House, Jay
oh
Giles
man,
Full House Live kind
so
of
good.
way
So,
before the MTV stuff.
and it's
But
interesting because they're not the only band that like transitioned into the MTV era and became kind of stars to a new generation.
ZZ
So
Top, same thing.
yeah.
I saw ZZ Top like Tres Hombres,
Oh,
era,
cool.
and they were just incredible. And they I forget who they opened for, but that was another opener that was like, holy shit. But Jake Giles, I remember Leonard Skinner opened for the Who in Atlanta on the
Wow.
Quadrophenia tour.
Wow.
I was lucky. My first three concerts were them, the Beach Boys. Second concert was Allman Brothers at Atlanta Stadium. Third concert was Led Zeppelin at Atlanta Stadium. Fourth concert was the Who Quadrophenia tour at the Omni in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And Leonard Skinner, their record had just come out, and that was their first big tour opening. And I loved them. They were great. I wasn't real crazy when the rebel flag came rolling down behind them. We were standing there going, right, dudes.
Yeah.
But they kicked ass. They were great. I mean,
Yeah.
the music was great. I didn't dig the rebel flag too much, but the music was incredible. And And again, that we all sort of like felt like they were one of us, because
Yeah.
they were from the South and opening for the Who, and they kicked ass. They like to delude themselves that they blew the Who off the stage. No,
It's
no.
kind of hard at that
Quadrophenia
point.
era Who
Yeah.
is probably, if I had to pick one concert, the greatest concert I ever saw, it would have been that Quadrophenia tour. It was Keith
Amazing.
Moon. I mean,
What's a band you saw back in those days that you were excited to see that let you down? Were you just like, man,
you know, probably because it was a stadium gig, but I wasn't that impressed with Led Zeppelin.
huh?
They were great, but Page is a little sloppy anyways, and it just seemed a little. And Robert Plant ducked. He might have been not feeling well, but Robert Plant ducked a few notes that you're like, oh, here it comes. And then it's like, what? He went down an octave there, which of
Right.
course he had to. I mean,
Yeah.
as I became a singer myself, I understood why.
Yep.
But I totally got it. But Led Zeppelin, I wasn't as blown away by. I'm trying to think who else. I wasn't knocked out by Marshall Tucker. They opened for the Allman Brothers, and it's part of it too was like I was really wanting to see the Allman Brothers. I'm
Yeah.
like, come on, let's go. Yeah, take the highway this way, dude. But yeah, I was really lucky. The thing of it is back in those days, you had to be really good, man.
Yeah.
You had to. The bands that played at our high school dances were badass. You couldn't phone it in. You had to be really good. You had to have your gear down. You had to know. These guys had to. If the amp blew, they had to fix it.
Yeah.
You had to know your gear. You had to know how to string your guitars. Everything had to be professional. There wasn't amateur. Hey, let me just get in front of cameras and everyone will love me and I'll be instantly famous. It's like you had to work your ass off. That's what I came up in.
So when you were seeing bands, what singer set the bar higher aside from Peter Wolf and Jay Giles, which is for people that don't know, definitely worth digging into. But what's another singer that for you who maybe hadn't become a professional singer yet went like, okay, now I gotta
Right.
lift my own bar.
Steve Marriott for sure. I saw Humble Pie.
Yep.
Steve Marriott for sure. He really informed my singing. So that Humble Pie live record really hit me at a time when I was developing. I wanted to sing like Robert Plant. I wanted to be Robert Plant. And I ended up with this voice, as you know, closer to Steve Marriott, Bon Scott, which is fine.
Yep.
I'm totally happy with that. But Steve Marriott was somebody that really got me. Greg Allman
Yep.
blew me away. And a completely different vibe, but Greg blew me away. And oddly enough, I mean, even though I was a little disappointed initially with Led Zeppelin, Robert Plant, just his whole thing,
Yeah.
his whole presence and everything. And he did some shrieks that were just blood curdling. And they hit the Echoplex like right at the right time and everything. And they'd
Nice.
ride him up. He'd do these. So nothing, again, I'm being very nitpicky about Led Zeppelin, but because really for the longest time, they could have sucked and I would have still been blown away because
Right.
it's the whole experience. But
Yeah.
Greg, Rod Stewart, Van Morrison, those a lot of cats, but Rod Stewart, Steve Marriott, Robert Plant, the Holy Trinity,
So were you
Never
were,
saw the
were
AC/DC
was your world all rock or was there soul and funk and different like were there some other singers that you might have seen that were non-rock that
Oh
James
yeah, I
Brown
remember
or
seeing I remember seeing Tower of Power with I forget the guy's name, the original lead singer, the guy that ended up going to jail for murdering
oh
somebody.
yeah, I forgot.
Not Lenny Pickett, but I forget what his name was, but they blew me away. I saw Tower of Power in probably 74, something
Hearing my
like that.
dogs going off out there. It's part of the charm of doing a podcast.
Oh yeah, you got a little something out there.
Yeah, they hear something outside this happens. So when you were starting to become a singer and you're like, I'm going to do this professionally, what was the gig that stepped you into that realm?
A personal gig. I can't think of like one singular show, but it was
Or
that whole process of going into a bar and setting up and singing. And you're like, Jesus, I hope they like me. And of course, you can't project that because
right.
like the audiences are like animals; they sense fear.
Yeah.
So you have to not project this. Please like me, please like me. And it taught me a lot to like, even if you're not sure, you damn sure better act like you're sure.
Yeah.
So
That's great.
it's just when I started playing in bars in Sarasota, playing
Now, you
playing up
saw
and down.
you saw bands, local bands and bars and stuff, but you must have seen some bands that later on got bigger that you saw at their club phase or whatnot. So you get to see a singer or guitar player with the band up close and personal.
Yeah, yeah.
What would be a band that you saw in their club days that just had that magnetism where they just took that space, or where whether you knew they were going to be huge or not,
Right.
like
I,
that.
you know, I can't think of anybody that I saw that ended up being Van Halen or something like that. I mean, there were local dudes that like guys that played in the Outlaws and guys that ended up playing with the Allman Brothers or
Yep.
with Dickie Betts. Um, Matt Apps, man, Matt Apps, that he was playing in a local band in Sarasota with my friend John Prestia. And Matt came down from DC. Matt was just the coolest fucking person I'd ever seen in my life. He rolled his t-shirts up on the sleeves and he had his hair. I mean, they were just like the coolest people. And Matt had some big city vibe to him. So, Matt went on to play with Dickie and with Government Mule. And so,
Yep.
I mean, and Matt is one of my best friends, one of my closest friends. And so I got to watch him up close and personal. And we did a lot of music. He was the drummer with Montrose when I played with Ronnie. So,
Very cool.
that was,
What
but
ki- what kind of a guy was Ronnie Montrose as, to work with as a person?
Ronnie was fabulous, man. He was so funny. He was sick. He had a very, very dark sense of humor and very funny, incredible guitarist, great producer. I met Ronnie. Someone brought him to see me, a guy that was our drum tech at the time. I had locked out the big room at SIR in San Francisco for like months. I had way more money than I should have had at the time, and I outbid Santana for the big room at SIR.
Wow.
And we just rehearsed, and I did showcases there and stuff like that. But a guy that was working for me, one of my crew, knew Ronnie, and said, "Ronnie's going to love your singing." And I'm like, "Okay, cool, bring him down."
Yeah.
And one day I'm up there, we're running through our set, and I looked and I see in the doorway, I just see these eyes, man. Ronnie had these really intense eyes. And he just loved what he heard and introduced himself, and we started hanging out. He produced about a record's worth of material for me and played on it. I just recently found some copies of it.
Cool.
The masters are long gone, excuse me, but Ronnie was very intense, very professional, uh, very much a perfectionist when it came to his playing and his gear. Again, another thing is like there was guys that could play guitar, but they didn't have their sound.
Right.
They didn't have their gear. And Ronnie had everything. He had the gear. I remember he had this big black Gretsch. It was a solid body, but he might have been semi-hollow. But he just everything, his amps, everything was just dialed in.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. Ronnie was incredible. I really cherish the times I got to spend with him.
Oh, I bet.
And we
So,
stayed friends, for the whole time.
yeah,
He would always call me and he'd go, "Keith, it's Ron. How's your bum?" That was how our phone conversations always started.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I know when you get into conversations about your career in music, people focus on the Allman Brothers, and I don't want to be typical and focus on that period.
Sure.
But I, being a huge fan of the Allman Brothers, would be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about it. I know your story about meeting Greg and writing songs with him at a house party in the kitchen
Yeah.
and getting to know him as a person. He had a magnetism to him. He was not a guy that would run around the stage and jump around, but there was this like quiet power to
Oh yeah.
his whole voice. How did he carry that as a person? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, man, I know what you mean. And as you were saying that, I was realizing that like to be one of the most prominent lead vocalists in rock history and blues, he did 99% of it sitting down
yeah,
and sitting at the B3. And
right.
that was an experience in and of itself, watching him up close, working the B3 and the volume pedal and everything. It would be like
Yeah.
he was driving a Corvette, man. He
Oh
had
yeah.
that volume pedal working. Um, Gregory had this coolness and this elegance, which a lot of people don't really get because, frankly, he could be pretty sloppy at times. Not as much on stage as off. I mean, occasionally on stage, I saw him one time. It was kind of embarrassing.
Happens.
Not when I was with him, but early on, he did not show up on stage at his best, put it that way.
Right. Yeah.
Gregory had this coolness. Gregory was probably the coolest dude I ever met, man. He was just, he had this cool. And it was in his stage persona and it was just in his whole vibe.
Yeah.
And he always spoke real quiet and kind of, he never raised his voice at people, and he'd get short, but he wouldn't raise his voice when he
Interesting.
was pissed. And he could get pissed, but
Yeah.
he had this quiet elegance to him that I noticed way before I met him. He had the velvet jackets, and he had the coolest clothes, and his whole vibe
Yeah.
cool. And then once I got to know him, it's like that's him. It's not an act.
Yeah.
And he carried that from the blues guys that he grew up around, and he learned how to act from B.B. King and Albert King and people
Yeah.
like that. So
He was,
yeah, man, he
and
was.
it's such a kind of a bit of a checkered life. I know there was some stuff that went down in the 70s with, the drug busts and stuff, but and all of his different romances and whatnot. But the guy was a legend, and his vocal tracks, you could put on an Allman Brothers song, and it's just gonna always sound eternal and timeless to me. I mean,
It's
that voice is
exactly,
just
yeah.
of the ages.
Yeah, that was his voice, and that was his voice when he was 19 years old.
Which is crazy.
That was the crazy thing. The first time I heard the Allman Brothers is before I actually saw an album, and I'm like, wait a minute, that blonde guy, that's Greg
Yeah,
Allman.
right.
And I get that from myself too. But as I got old, as I started singing, it's like that voice is coming out of you. It's like,
Well, you ever see the early
yeah,
footage of Steve Winwood, and he sounds like Ray Charles?
yeah,
It's like a
exactly.
teenager. You're like, what?
Same kind of thing. Same kind of
How is
vibe.
that voice coming out of that person, right?
Steve Winwood would be another person I would count as influential
Yeah. Who?
singer, and not just the voice, but the attack,
Yeah. Who
But,
who would
but
you say is a singer that was superb but never had the material to hit that next level? Like they just never had the right songs?
Steve Marriott could have been, you could put him in that. I mean, he had some really cool songs,
Yep.
and the Humble Pie live record was
Oh yeah.
badass, but there wasn't like a single. I mean, Itch Park, was
Yep.
was a single, and I mean, which isn't to say, I mean, Steve Marriott was huge, but I could see his voice going to a different level.
Yeah.
If he'd had the right material and the right handling and all that kind of stuff. But it
Oh
was a
yeah.
different time too, you know.
And so much of that music, it endures for us, but in the public consciousness tends to fade. And so bands that were ubiquitous and that everybody knew, it seems like if you walked up to, a millennial or Gen Z on the street, they might not know who any of these people
No,
are.
exactly.
Um,
One person I saw that blew me away was Henry Gross. I don't know if
Henry
you're familiar with
Gross.
him. Henry Gross, guitar player, singer, songwriter. He had a record called "Plug Me Into Something," and I saw him at a medium-sized club, like a House of Blues sized club
Yeah.
in Atlanta, Alex Cooley's Electric Ballroom, and he
Okay.
blew me away. And he had a great voice, great guitar player, looked great, and he should have been bigger than he was.
Yeah.
He had a song called Shannon, and it was you always thought it was about a girl, and it was actually about a dog.
Oh,
One of his dogs died, and then you find out you're like, oh, I love this song even more.
right.
Yeah, Shannon by Henry Gross. It was a pretty big hit. I don't know if it was a regional hit or what, but Henry Gross was a badass. He's still out there playing, I think. But
I love, if it's in you, if you're a lifer, there's some people that they just stop making music because they can't make a business out of it and it's more
yeah,
of a product. And then there's people who are artists and they just can't, they have to make art. They just have to
you,
put
you,
music out and it's part of their soul, their catharsis.
yeah. I mean,
So yeah,
you do it because you have to.
yeah,
I tell people, like, young. I'm aging myself again, but young people that I talk to that are, what's your advice and stuff? It's like, if you don't absolutely have to do it, don't do it.
yeah,
And if you're in it for any reason other than that you love it and you have to do it, you're gonna be disappointed at some point.
right.
I don't care how
Compulsion.
successful you get. The girls are gonna stop coming. The drugs are gonna stop flowing. The money's gonna stop pouring
Right,
in, if it ever starts pouring in. So
right.
you have to have that as your foundation.
Yeah,
And if you don't, man, it's gonna suck at some point. And God knows I got discouraged a couple times,
Yeah.
and I wasn't happy with where my career had gone. And I was like, I know what, I'll show them, I'll quit.
Right.
And then it's like, okay, now I'm not doing what I love to do.
Right.
And I'm at a point now, man, I'd rather sing and not get paid than not get paid and not sing.
Right.
I mean, ideally,
Well
I'd like to
put.
get paid and sing and get paid well, but
Of course.
I'm at this point where it's like, I'll work with you. What's your budget?
Right. But yeah, there's something about doing it. I'm the same way. I mean, I love to make music. I love to be involved in recordings. I love to create, so there it goes back to me to curiosity. And
Exactly.
curiosity to me is the number one driver of success. So the people who are lifers are curious, they push past boundaries, they push past frustration. They don't quit because they can't quit.
Yeah, yeah.
So a lot of people know you as a singer. What do you wish more people knew about you or knew you for?
I'm actually pretty happy if they know me as a singer. That's kind of, in reflecting as I'm getting older, thinking back, like, what did I really want? We all go through this when we reach a certain age. What would 18-year-old Keith think about year-old Keith?
Yeah.
And I honestly, I'd be pretty proud of me. I was just telling a friend yesterday, what I wanted more than anything was to be a great singer.
Yep.
And maybe I should have been a little more specific, but as it turns out, I mean, I know what I'm capable of, and I know, just based on the feedback that I get when I'm
Yeah.
playing, when I'm singing live. I don't know, man. I'm satisfied. I mean, I'm happy, and I'm doing what I do, and I'm real good at it. I'm
Yeah.
not. I don't have any, self-doubt about that part. Probably the only thing I don't have self-doubt about is my singing.
I love
So
that.
like I said, I'm a lifer, but even if you're a lifer, you'll go through periods where out of necessity you have to do other stuff
Yeah.
to bring in income or to just to survive.
Sure.
I did PA, I PA'd on music, on movies. I was actually an accountant, which anyone who knows me was like, "You're doing what? You?" And it's all computers. I
Right.
was mainly doing data entry and data processing. I was not actually accounting because I have numbers dyslexia, I think, but
But you
I
did the
did
job
do that,
well.
as a living for a while, and sort of filtered back into doing music,
What
through.
what do you think most people assume about you that isn't true?
Oh God, that I'm a Trump supporter. I don't know. I guess I don't know, man. I'm a pretty much an open book. I think maybe they think I'm maybe uh, little more wild than I am now. I used to be, I used to be. I was one of those guys. My nickname was the Tasmanian Devil. I would come into a room like, wow. And I think maybe I'm probably a little less that than people probably presume.
So what would you say are your best and worst habits?
Best habit is persevering, singing, remaining, keeping my chops together,
Yeah.
singing no matter what. Worst habit is definitely procrastination. Um, Thinking, I got time, I can do this, and that's the old
Right.
thing. Your biggest mistake is you think you have time. So
Right.
I've been guilty multiple times of procrastination, and some of that is born from fear of failure. Well, if I don't do it, then I can't fail, or if I never finish this,
Right.
then it can't be a failure.
So
And,
what's a failure that you've had that at the time you perceived as a failure, but actually turned into a great life lesson?
oh God, two marriages, they were failures, but they were also life lessons,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, which contributes to my third one, just celebrating our 25th anniversary. So finally
That's
figured it out,
success. Yeah.
right?
Third
So
time's the charm.
yeah, yeah. I mean, drugs, definitely learned my lesson the hard way with drugs, and
Yep.
um, would have been much better off had I maybe tried cocaine like three times. Once for the fun of it, second to make sure, and third to like kiss it goodbye. But that I definitely that's a regret that I that I
But
wasted a lot of
you
time.
you were in a scene and a situation where there was a ubiquity to that, where it didn't
Right.
seem like something, it was just
Yeah. That's
like
like I say, yeah, I was the guy in the 80s doing all the blow, right? It's like it was everywhere.
right,
And it did have a certain glamour to it. And it was, they were talking about legalizing it back then in those days. They were saying
right,
it's a harmless recreational drug. And we were all like, I can quit whenever I want. We just
right,
never got around to wanting to quit.
right.
So, it's like I only all the jokes. I only did it when I was alone or with someone, all of those things.
Right.
So that was, a big one for me was that I wasted a lot of time and a lot of life doing that. I was either for a period of time, and I only had a physical addiction, but I was just so wrapped up in it. I was either doing it or looking for it,
Right.
doing it, getting it, or looking for it, and
Right.
it consumed way too much of my time. And not to mention it, didn't help my health. And I used to think, well, I'll do a big line and I'll go sing my ass off, and it's like, no,
Yeah.
you're going to get out there and your throat's going to be all numb and you're going to be all amped up and you're going to be singing sharp
Yeah.
because anytime you're over amped, you go sharp.
Right.
And I used to think I was killing it. And I had a very good friend when I started finally figuring it out. I went out and I did this set and I was higher than shit. And I'm killing it. And I came off stage and this girl, one of my best friends, and I'm waiting for her to go, dude. And she just went like that. And I'm like, what?
Oh,
And she's like, dude, we need to talk. And she said, you sound like shit. You look like shit. Your jaw looks like a lantern on the back of a train.
right.
And she was usually right there with me with this, but she's like, you need to know,
Yeah.
this is not good. And this is not helping you. And it was like, I always thought that I could perform
Right.
and I was deluding myself. I was not performing. I was thinking I was performing. So,
Right.
looking back, there were probably showcases that I thought I was killing and I wasn't. And the A&R guys going, mm-hmm, right. Uh,
Yes. So
uh,
nowadays you do more of warming up and getting yourself prepared. So when you're on stage, you're comfortable and none of those issues. Do you have a warm-up routine when you sing now?
I try to, but the realities of playing, like particularly playing clubs and doing these kinds of dates, is like, I don't know what I'm going to sing. I don't know what I'm going on. There's so much hurry up and wait. You do a sound check, and then there's
Right.
a few hours. A lot of times, I get out of the car and get up on the stage and start singing, and the first song is my warm up.
Yeah.
And I kind of tend to, particularly like the Allman Brothers shows, I tend to like build in a couple of songs that are like mid-rangey that get me up easily to get up into the higher
Right.
range. But I mean, I have routines that if I have time and if I know, okay, I'm definitely going on at 8
Yep.
and it's 20 till.
Yep.
But it's sort of like the analogy would be like in baseball when a relief pitcher warms up
Yeah.
and then doesn't go in the game.
Yeah.
You can only do that a couple times before it's like he can't go in now because he's warmed up a couple times. So when
Right.
you get warmed up and then it's another half an hour, 45 minutes before you sing, you're sort of back to square one. So
Interesting.
in a perfect world, you've got a nice room, a nice green room where there's nobody else.
Yep.
Hate being around other people when I'm about to perform. And the
Right.
reality is you just can't. Very rarely do I have a room to myself.
Right.
But ideal situation about 45 minutes before, I've got 20 minutes to warm up, sing scales, sing parts of songs that I know are like in the range that I need to get to.
Yep.
But it's a very inexact science. I mean, some people, like I said, if you have the luxury and the infrastructure where you know what time you're going on,
Right.
maybe so. But it doesn't work that way, kids. I can't tell you right now.
So I'm gonna ask you a couple of random questions. Thinking back, what would you say is one of the saddest songs ever written and recorded?
Uh, Starry Starry Night, Vincent,
Oh, Don
Don
McLean.
McLean. I saw him when I was about 16 in a club, and when he played that song, I just wept like a baby.
Yeah.
Because and the everything about it, the lyrics, the melody, it's
All of
so
it.
poignant, and knowing the story,
Oh yeah.
and all of that, that one for sure. Um, Thorn Tree in the Garden
Oh yeah, Derek and the
off
Dominoes.
Layla Bobby Whitlock's. And again, everyone thought it was about a woman. It was about a dog, about a little dog that he had that it was a horrible story. He went on tour, he left this dog with this neighbor, and the neighbor had it put to sleep
Oh my
while he
gosh.
was gone.
Oh man.
Yeah, yeah. And really, just because it was a hassle, it wasn't sick. He just had the dog put down, and
Damn.
Bobby gets off tour and like, you what? And so that's what that song's about. The Thorn Tree in the Garden is
Beautiful.
very poignant too. I tell you, one of the all-time songs that always makes me cry is Somewhere Over the Rainbow,
Just
which is not a
has
rock
that,
song, obviously, but
yeah, it touches you
it
some
didn't
way.
used to. The My wife and I went to a screening at the Chinese theater back. It was whatever the Munchkins finally got their star on the Hollywood
Yeah.
Walk of Fame. There were like two or three of them left, and they screened a new print in the Chinese theater. And I'm sitting there, and she starts singing "Somewhere Over the Rainbow," and I'm kind of starting to go, and my eyes start watering, and I'm like, "Oh shit!" And by the time she gets to the chorus, I'm bawling. I mean, crying, full on ugly crying. And Martha, my wife, like nudges me, and she goes, "Honey, listen, someone's crying." And she turned and she saw me. Someone's crying, and I'm like,
Just hits you.
yeah, yeah. So, and I'm not really sure. I think that was a lot of memories of people that my dad and grandmothers that I used to watch it with and stuff. But that song hit me like a ton of bricks. And now, whenever I hear it, it's like, uh-oh, here we go. But
So to tell you a quick story, a couple years back, I used to play at a piano club here in LA, and a lot of the guys that play in it, some are gone, but some are in their early 90s, right? And so this
wow,
guy, I played Over the Rainbow, and I got off. He goes, "I saw that movie in the theater."
wow, when it
I
came
went,
out.
when it came out, his grandmother took him. I was like, wow, it seems like such an old thing, and here's a guy that actually went and saw it in the
Yeah,
theater.
yeah.
He's 90 something, but so I feel like back in the 1970s, 60s into the 70s, there were a lot of story songs that had a story to it. And I don't know how to describe it other than that. And there were some that were really spooky. One for me was Angie Baby by Helen Reddy.
Yeah.
Just it seemed so spooky. Would there be any songs that you would put in that category that
Sometimes from the story, well, the one
spooked you
that
out?
freaked us all out in that era was that Blood Rock, DOA by Blood Rock, if you've
Really?
ever heard that. And it was about a plane crash or something like that, and it was told in the first person of someone dying in a plane crash and
Wow.
kind of describing what was happening as it was happening. And that one, we'd
Dark.
listen, it'd scare the shit out of us. So, well, let's listen to it again. It's like DOA by Blood Rock was pretty scary. And they had an album. I honestly, I don't know that I listened to any other song on the record, but that one was scary. Certain songs scared me. A couple of Hendrix songs scared me because he had died,
Oh, right.
and there were things that were very haunting, and sounds. And what was another song that scared me? The middle parts of Dazed and Confused used to scare the shit out of me because I think I was 9, something like that when that record came out. But certain songs it wasn't so much the story, but just the sounds. They were so dark and
Right.
eerie and shit like that.
Just
But
has an effect on you. When you were a teenager, what songs represented being in love or having a crush and heartbreak? What would be songs that
ooh,
you would have put
uh,
on to
Love
accompany
Rain or
yourself?
Me, Love Rain or Me was like the song that would be ringing in my head, my first real serious
Relationship
romance,
or
so to
romance?
speak. And to this day, I mean, that song gets me. I've gotten to perform it, and that's my lowering me into the ground or spreading my ashes song for sure.
When you
Um,
when you perform that song, how's that feel to sing that?
Amazing, amazing. And I'm thinking about all the different kinds of things. I think of her. I think of
Yeah.
how I felt. And it's like as you become older, they tell you when you're a kid you don't know what love is. It's like, yeah, I did. I knew
Yeah.
exactly what love was. I mean, I didn't quite know what to do with it at the time, but
Right. But you
but
you hear a certain song like, if I heard an Air Supply song, I'm like, that guy knows what being in love with a woman is
yeah,
about.
exactly,
There's something
absolutely,
that I don't know yet, but he knows, you
yeah.
know.
Yeah, exactly.
What obviously music is built not just on sounds but lyrics. What would you say are some of the great lyricists in your opinion? And they're a line from somebody that really stood out to you at a point, really like connected with your life.
Well, obviously Dylan,
Yep.
and I studied him as a songwriter and just so I mean, anything you could take the first word on Blood on the Tracks to the very last period on Blood on the Tracks, and literally every word uh, written like it was, spilling like from this 18th, like it was written in my soul from me to you.
Yeah.
The lyrics from that, a lot of Gregory's lyrics were very, very meaningful to me. And when I got to know him, it was like, oh, okay, I see where these words came from.
Yeah.
Um, my favorite line of all time is "I was born in a crossfire hurricane." I think that's just the coolest, most descriptive, line. I mean, to me, it's just like if you had to pick one line,
Nice.
I would go with that. A lot of Pete Townshend's lyrics, The
Yeah.
Who, the that the two albums, the Who's Next and Quadrophenia were for me and Live at Leeds, I'd say, but as far as lyrically and the song structures and things, I mean, Who's Next and Quadrophenia to me were like that. To me is like the Who, the
Yeah.
quintessential Who.
So right
Um,
around that year, like 1971 is often listed as one of the greatest years for music, right? All
yeah,
the albums that came out in that year were just still, it's
yeah,
almost untouchable. What would be another year that you would say was an amazing year for rock and roll and why?
72. Yeah, I mean that era, 67, 69, I'm a 60s, 70s kind of guy,
Yeah.
I've had cover bands where like the newest song we played was something off Damn the Torpedoes, which was still 79. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I was I wasn't a huge fan of a lot of the music in the 80s or 90s or really subsequent,
So
to that. I
I
wasn't
would not think necessarily you were a fan of the hair metal stuff, but certainly
yeah.
like some of the bigger bands, the U2 or Michael Jackson or Madonna or whatnot. Were there any Prince? Were there any of
Prince,
those?
yeah, definitely.
I was gonna
Definitely
say like any
Prince.
of those that actually broke through and you were like, all right,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is
Prince for sure. Prince definitely. And I neglected the female artists and stuff like that, but Stevie Nicks and Janis Joplin was kind of, I hate to say it, was a little before my time.
yeah.
He had passed away right around the time I was coming of age, but Hart, Ann Wilson, what a great singer.
Oh yeah.
But the 80s, 90s stuff, Prince, I liked you too. And Bono was kind of in my range. I mean, Journey,
Yeah.
I unfortunately that was the era I was trying to get signed to a record deal, so I was doing a lot more that kind of stuff, doing a lot more recording and writing, trying to get a record deal than recording and writing and being an artist, and it was part of the component of the times. You kind of needed a record deal to put a record out.
Right.
Back then, you didn't have home studio. If you had a home studio, it sounded like shit.
Right.
It was like rigged together. And hey, listen to this. I had guys that, oh, I did this on my 4 track and I bounced everything down. It's like, no interest in that.
Right.
And they're underneath soldering stuff. And I was like, no, 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 no. So you had to get into a real studio and you had to have a budget to do that. So, I mean, it was understandable, but I
Yeah.
chased, you were speaking earlier about things that I may regret. I chased trying to get signed when I probably would have had a better chance of getting signed doing what I did.
Right.
So,
Interesting in hindsight. It's 2020, right?
oh yeah, perfect.
And all of those, the things that went right in your life and led you places. When you're looking back, what would you say would be what you saw at the time as a mistake, and maybe looking back, even still see as a mistake that you made that really taught you something?
We covered the drugs. I didn't, because the cool things that happened for me were never things that I auditioned for or that I went out and solicited. They are
Interesting.
always things that just happened. The Allman Brothers, had I tried to get in the Allman Brothers band, they would have been, get the fuck out of here.
Right.
But by shutting up and doing being Keith, basically,
Yep.
I've had more success being Keith than anything. And I would say that's probably true across the board. If you're yourself and you're
Yep.
genuinely someone that people want to have around, then you'll be cool. But
I love that.
I don't know. I can't think of mistakes that I made as a career. I had a producer at the time that the Allman Brothers brought me on board, and I was real close to signing a deal then. And I had a song that was, going to be my single. And when I told him I was doing the Allman Brothers tour, he was like, "This is a big mistake, man. You need to stay doing what you're doing." And I'm like, "No, man, there's no way I'm not doing this."
Right.
And I learned a lot, and I had the experience of being in front of 100,000 people,
Yep.
10,000 people, playing real stages in front of real crowds.
Right.
So I didn't think he thought it was a mistake, but I didn't think so.
Did you get back to him afterwards and did he renege on
Kind
his?
of, we'd all kind of moved on, and I moved out here. This was in Florida, and we stayed in touch, but we didn't. And I was sort of moved on to bigger and better things.
Yeah.
So
Well,
uh,
I'm
maybe
hoping
maybe a mistake was when I came out here. I moved to Marin County. I probably should have come here,
to LA.
but at the time there was still a lot of music business up there. It was
Yeah.
waning. But I had the Doobie Brothers management was managing me for a minute,
Okay.
mismanaging me more like it. But that might have been a mistake. I mean, I'm thinking, hey, these guys know what they're doing.
Right.
Unfortunately, they were already doing it, and they had other stuff, and they had Night Ranger was like their big act. So
Okay.
I kind of got shuffled aside for Night Ranger, and then by that point, I'd wasted a couple of years and. But
Like
I
you
can't
said,
think of anything like, oh man, I wish I hadn't done it other than lifestyle shit
yeah.
and two
Right on.
marriages. Those I
Yeah.
wish I hadn't done.
I
But
mean, I think at some point you get to a point in your life where you have to look back and just be happy with all of it because you got to this point, you like who you are, and
exactly, I like me. I
you
like me,
know,
and I'm glad. All these things went into where I'm at right now, which is cool. So,
yeah. And next to Keith Partridge, you're definitely my favorite Keith.
well, I'll take that as a huge compliment, and
Humongous.
I'll say that Keith Richards is my second favorite Keith, other than
Love
me.
it.
So,
And
yeah, it's
Robbie
funny. I used
Krieger's
to
my
be
next favorite
called.
Robbie.
Exactly. Yeah, you're my favorite Robbie as well. Or
Oh,
Robbie with an IE, anyways. But
you're sweet. Well, look, I hope we can make some music in the new year. I hope everybody
absolutely.
hears a song we got together and
Yeah,
wrote.
man, we're gonna finish it off this year. I've spoken to JJ, and we've got a plan.
Awesome.
And
Um, and
yeah, man, we
I hope
absolutely need to do some more stuff.
I hope people get to see you perform and radiate in the joy and rock and roll that you bring. And I'm so happy that you came and chatted with me today, Keith England. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Robbie Jeanette, it was a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
Right on.